call the October meeting of the Board of Police Commission to order. We stand, recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out who did that.
So welcome our liaison with the capital L from the Board of Selectmen, Mr. Goldberg. Good to have you here. Chief, I also want to acknowledge your leadership team for, we just concluded a promotional ceremony promoting two officers to the rank of sergeant. They were supported by their family in attendance as well as a number of other officers from the department, and I thought it was very appropriate and very, I think, sincere in congratulating them to take on the responsibilities. This was, you know, something I know you put a lot of thought in terms of how these assignments are going to be, their responsibilities are going to be assigned. We've had these vacancies for a period of time, so this was, I think, an important and effective move in developing, you know, the structure and the cohesion of the department. So it was a good event just prior to this formal meeting. So, is there a motion to accept our September minutes as written?
Motion to accept September?
Okay. Second?
Second.
Any modifications, adjustments, additions? Hearing none, all those voting to approve the minutes as written?
Aye.
Aye.
Holly, just another superb job. God, she's so good. Public comments. No members of the public are here, so we can thank that. Chief's report. Chief?
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Before I start, I just want to thank Captain Harkins for his diligence in putting together the exam for Sergeant in conjunction with South Central Criminal Justice, and thank you for your hard work. Okay, financials. You should have had, they should be in your packet. If you reviewed them, any questions you may have on them?
So, no question, and we'll state the obvious, but so this is basically first quarter review, and so and this just reiterates, you know, the trend we saw. Hopefully that we're going to be able to put some kink in some of this trend line regarding wages once we get fully up to capacity. So it looks like, you know, there's no real surprises at the end of this quarter, which anytime you're looking at the financials, certainly the CFOs in us do not like surprises. So this is we're on track. So it's you know, satisfying to see that. Is there any significant financial issues that you see, you know, looming in the second quarter of the year, the October, November, December period?
Well, we're gonna have overtime again. We have the additional officer, which we're been approved to hire after January 1st. Okay. In addition to that, I may mention that Michael DePalma will be retiring resigning from our department. He's going to be going to the Marshal Service.
And what's the effective date of that?
Pardon?
What's the effective date of his?
It's going to be November 1st. It brought to my attention also that we have another officer that's going to be retiring. They plan on moving south, being closer to family members down there. I believe his daughter has twins. So that's Officer Klasuda. We don't have a date. He has his house, I guess, on market, but that's going to happen sooner. So my anticipation is that we're going to be going into the December looking for 3 police officers. The selection process obviously starts when we hear this news. So we're going to be moving ahead looking for 3 positions. And hopefully, I mean, we're going to do a separate exam on this for the town of Madison. We've watched some of the other agencies that did have a little better success, particularly with limited. Some of the agencies that were advertising received more applicants than the actual exam for multiple departments, because people said, hey, I like that area. We're hoping that Madison will have that same effect. We're also putting together, and Doug maybe can talk a little bit more about it, that we're putting together the community unit / recruitment unit. And right now we're getting what they call it, it's more like a backdrop and informational screen to put when we go to different areas, universities, for recruitment drive and other. Also, we do positive public. We have that there. It's a nice effect.
I think it's a great idea. What do you think? What do you anticipate the timing for the Madison officer exam to be?
Charlie can put together very soon.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
We just have to get that rolling. Month, as early as that.
Goes out, they generally run in 10 days, and then from there, it's 2 to 3 weeks. Information is, you apply, it's vetted, and you take the exam.
Well, you know, we've talked about if there's one issue that can derail, distract, introduce a certain stress in the department, it's the lack of officers. I mean, that's the one thing where we, and again, I realize I'm wandering around in your guys' backyard in terms of waving this flag. So I know this is not a bulletin to you, but if we're gonna have the 3 vacancies, and then there's this guy called Murphy who throws a monkey wrench in, and then you have this one out because of an injury, and this one out because of a family issue, and, you know, we've all experienced where some really dedicated officers simply physically are not available to come in, and we bump into, we now have 5 vacancies. You know, all the stress kind of ratchets it up, and particularly on you guys. So, you know, I think this separate exam is, you know, an excellent approach to try, and what I would urge in terms of whether it's the recruiting unit or the community unit, get the right people and say, how do we advertise this? Full-page ads, something in the patch? What about the radio? What can we do to have this be seen in as broad an audience as possible? If we're going to have this exam, classic is, if you're gonna make the trip, make the trip, okay? So if we're going to figure out how do we spread the word, do we have the younger officers say, okay, here's what I'm gonna ask you to do. I'm gonna ask you to call 5 of your former classmates who are thinking about it, never quite there, call them. Tell them there's an exam coming up. Come in and take the exam. And by the way, when you come in and take the exam, you're gonna talk to some people who really tell you about what it's like to be a law enforcement officer at Madison. And you know, it's, market the hell out of it.
Mr. Chairman, it's on Instagram, it's on Facebook, over 5,000 hits.
Great, great, I mean, what you wanna do is have the problem of saying, I don't know where they're gonna sit. I'm telling you, we got 5, we got 6 in this room, we got 7. That's the problem we wanna create, but that is terrific. So, anyway,
Okay,
good move.
we're moving in that direction. If there are not any other questions on the budget, I'll go to the,
Chief, can I ask you a quick question?
certainly.
I know, there's an app that the police department uses and law enforcement uses when they're looking for a job. I think it's Police app.
We're on that.
We are. Can we make sure we're really awesome on there? Because some towns really do a fantastic job talking about their town, talking about the benefits, talking about the department. I did a review a couple months back and some really were really good. And ours was a little thin compared to some of the other towns. So just kind of compare a little bit when we're ready, because 3 is going to be a lot of work to get 3.
Good point. Okay.
Okay, we'll go on to statistics for the first quarter of this fiscal year. July, August, and September, there were 351 alarms, majority are false alarms, 911 hangups are 153, a lot of those come from people's cell phones. Burglar alarms 94, fire alarms 104 during that quarter. Response to suspicious vehicles 45, suspicious persons 37, and I say this quite often. If you see something suspicious, particularly in your neighborhood, you know your neighbor's habits, and you see somebody walking up that walk or something, you call us. That's how we capture these folks. Animal nuisance, 94 bites 1. That follows the protocols of the state canine officer. Animal nuisance, that generally is we have more during the summer months, particularly when people want to walk their animals out, and of course the dog parks are packed. Juvenile missing, we do not have any missing adult over 16, we had 3. Juvenile complaints 5. Juvenile with alcohol 0, narcotics 0, fingerprint requests 99. A lot of that during the end of the summer months, people returning to a new career, new job, they have to get fingerprint. Also the Board of Ed, we help to support them. Approximately 674 calls for medical. That's the R1, that's us with the oxygen defib, meaning the ambulance, or hopefully being in front of the ambulance before people are in need. Assisted persons 242, other agencies 64. Majority of those would be the DEEP down in Hammonasset. It would also be I-95 for the state police for motor vehicle accidents or a complaint assault at one of the rest areas. The motor vehicle accidents, we've had a total of 96. We had 8 abatings, with injury were 16. Seatbelts do work. Property damage 38, private property 24, car versus animal 10. Motor vehicle enforcement. Motor vehicle arrests 154, speed enforcements 1,125, DUI arrests 4, written warnings 1,371, and verbal warnings 37. Subtotal calls are 685, motor vehicle stops 2691, 2,691, and total calls for service 3,686. Any questions on that?
We don't have that in our packet.
It's not in the packet.
Collating machine aided.
I was like, why do I have those? That was great.
Quick question. I'm sad to hear, and I want to extend my condolences to the Palumbo family of Madison who lost their son, their father, Mark Palumbo, in a wrong-way accident on 95 in Westbrook yesterday. They have 2 little kids. It's quite sad, and yet another example of this problem we're having with wrong-way drivers. And I know that's a state issue, but we have a couple highway entrances here, and this must be something that you guys talk about quite a bit.
There's a project with the DOT now to identify the high-risk areas and they have different diversions for that, or what we'll call, they have signage that's, if somebody goes the wrong way or backs up on a ramp, it will activate it. They have some of those in the high impact areas where there's more accidents, A lot of the ramps that they have north and south, east and west, next to each other, somebody from out of state will get on. A lot of that is not necessarily due to alcohol, although there's a percentage to it. I think a lot of folks with electronic devices may have GPS type devices, we'll bring it to them and they'll get on. We have a lot of people in the driving communities now that they have a driver's license, but they don't really understand or could read the signs. You know, there's somewhat of a language barrier in some regards. So that's what they're finding when they break these down and they, the conclusion of their investigation. So it's gonna be continuing. I think the devices are a good start. It's a strobe, it's a sign, it's audible in some of them. But once again, these people put these in with thousands of on and off ramps in the state of Connecticut.
They put them in Rhode Island, that's my understanding, they put them in Rhode Island as like throughout the whole entire state, and it was, my understanding in the report was that it eliminated wrong-way drivers getting on the highway.
Really?
Yeah, it's a small state, but, you know, so, I mean, I know the state legislature passed this and they're supposed to be adding them on, so is it something that you would get notified about, that they're putting it in?
They notify us when they're putting them in any device or any change. If you notice on Route 79 going up north, the
Yeah.
center line now has been gouged again with the heavy yellow.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the one, we call them the wake-up strips.
yeah,
Okay, so those, they let us know, about 2 months ago they were doing that.
okay,
So my assumption would be that each region has an allocation and they pick the project,
yeah.
so.
Given the fact that we have the 2 exits, is there anything, Chief, do you think we can do as a commission in the form of drafting a letter as the agency responsible for some level of traffic safety requesting a priority in terms of looking at these exits?
I know that they did their study on the ramps. Now, you gotta remember, somebody driving the wrong way could have gotten on miles before.
Right.
You know, they're driving in the high-speed lane, thinking that's the right-hand lane, it could be just traveling through Connecticut. But it's not unusual, and if I could draw my days in the state police, we'd have some people come up, multiple towns south or north, coming, by the time they get to Hartford, they were driving the wrong way. People just avoided it and called 911. It's very unfortunate, that we, you know, you gotta remember is that Connecticut lost almost 400 people last year in motor vehicle accidents, one of the highest they've had in years. And of that percentage, I believe there was 30-some odd wrong-way drivers. So,
Just looking at the stats between 23 and 24, under the column for suspicious, we're down about 20+% for vehicles and persons, which I would like to interpret it as us being, as a result of the officers being proactive out there, and the word getting out that Madison is tougher than it used to be to commit a crime in. So congratulations to that.
Okay.
any other questions?
Nope.
Okay. Jeremy, training report.
Training for the month of September, there was a total of 108 hours of training. Training consisted of search and seizure. Big one I want to point out is the cannabis impairment training. The state of Connecticut is starting to roll out a lot of training now monthly or not monthly, it's kind of like every 2 or 3 months for cannabis impairment, where they actually teach officers the signs for someone that's driving intoxicated or high on marijuana. And as also part of the training, they have people that actually smoke marijuana, and they actually do the field sobriety tests with individuals that are high on marijuana. So they've done that for years for DUIs for alcohol, where they have people come in with alcohol. Now they're actually starting to do it now with individuals that smoke weed and then are used as tests for the. So I'm going to try to get as many officers as I can every time there's training. So that was the first month they rolled it out. We were able to get 3 officers in that. So that's a big highlight for the training. And then just our typical collect and SWAT training.
Can I ask a question
Yes.
specific to that? So I was on the town's ad hoc committee about marijuana, like having it in town, like should we allow it? And so we were, and then I think we subsequently talked about it in here about the training. So what are you allowed to do? So like, and what is this what does this training, alert you to? Are you gonna see somebody swerving, pull them over, and then evaluate whether they're?
Yeah, so it would be the same size of a DUI: swerving, wrong way driving. It could be anything that would alert an officer to stop the possible impairment. When you would get to the car, I remember when I was a brand new officer, I'd be like, well, how do you really smell alcohol? But the first time you're actually out on the road and you smell it, you're like, oh, you smell it.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with marijuana, so you smell with the car. So by law now, that used to be an arrestable offense. Now, all we can do is just to make sure the operator is not impaired. So.
How do you do that?
So you would go through the same DUIs. It's the same tests that are performed. The only thing is, though, with alcohol, you get the horizontal gaze nystagmus, the eye test. With marijuana, you don't. So you're looking at other signs like red eyes, dilated pupils. But then you would still perform the walk and turn test, the one-leg stand test, and everything. So it's the same standardized test, but it's just more of now they would give them more cues for like the eyes and stuff, manners of speech and all that. Where with the HGN, that's more alcohol related. So you would train the officers to spot the snagness in the eyes. So
Okay.
that's really what the big training is. Yeah.
And so then you could, if the officer determines that the person is impaired.
Yep.
With marijuana, you could arrest them.
Oh yeah, for a DUI. Yep.
Have those tests continued to hold up in court? Generally, I know you can't
Oh, yeah.
say every single one, but they
So then it's a two-step. So an officer will make their findings and determine if there's probable cause to make an arrest or not. And then once they come back to booking for the court process, then they have to submit two samples. So breath, a blood, or a urine sample. So if we're suspecting that it's a drug-related offense, we're going to go right to getting the two samples of urine.
Mm-hmm.
If we feel like it's an alcohol, we'll get them on the breathalyzer first, and then do two tests of that. So.
And the refusal to give those
Yep.
is tantamount to an admission.
Yeah, they're read implied consent. It's on the DMV form where we basically spell out if you refuse, it's an automatic 6-month suspension and all that stuff. But so there's a whole thing. There's a whole step-by-step process that officers have to complete when it comes to a DUI arrest.
The training's based on national highway safety. A lot of science behind it, set standards, it's a point system. So they build probable cause, they're behind the car that's weaving, it's 2 in the morning. Could be somebody just reaching for something, or as they proceed, they watch it, and they have 5 points put to it. They have their high beams on still. Cars are coming at them, but their high beams are not being lowered, so that's another point system. Somebody trying to, when you go to stop them, it takes a period of time. They're not trying to run from you, but before they start reacting to it. And then when they pull over, it's like a long landing, so to speak. There's points assessed to that. The test outside the car, or while you're in conversations, also added to that. So that builds up, kind of lays the probable cause, and then go to the next step, which would be the testing phase. That all holds up in court. That's been.
And then the last thing to add to that is that a lot of this testing is so you may not smell anything because they may have they do a lot of training on to make sure a person's not having a medical emergency. So it's not someone driving under the influence, it may be a diabetic emergency, so that's part of the training as well to see, well, what is this? Is this a medical emergency, that's why the person needs an ambulance right now, or is this a DUI offense? So.
Alcohol produces a fruity aroma to the breath. A diabetic response also produces the same.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, we're at monthly traffic report. Doug, you got that, Frank? Got the heart.
Okay, for September, there were 25 reported motor vehicle accidents with 4 involving injuries. The leading cause of motor vehicle accidents involved deer strikes or debris in the roadway, failure to drive in the established lane, and failure to obey traffic control. There was 1 driving under the influence accident and 0 fatal motor vehicle accidents. There were 7 reported private property accidents. And lastly, there was 1 assist to the Connecticut State Police with a motor vehicle accident on Interstate 95.
Thank you. Why don't you go, would you do there's no questions on that, community calendar? What events we have? They handled in October, correction September, well, also handle October also. You have the Pride Fest, and then what we have coming up,
Sure.
to the turkey trot.
Okay, so we had the Closer to Free ride, which is a bike ride through towns. That went well. Madison Triathlon was on September 7th. That also went well. We had several officers assigned to traffic posts during that. I've worked with the organizers with that, where there's a swim portion at the surf club, then a bicycle portion throughout town all the way up to, from the surf club all the way up to Opening Hill and Overbrook that way. And then they have a 5K run down by Middle Beach. So we had several officers working traffic posts for that. It went great. There was a lot of participants. I think there was up to like, I want to say 350. It was a good turnout. So that went well. This past weekend, we had the Madison Pride Fest. We had our recruitment team down there with a table, and my understanding is it went very well. Let's see, we have Trunk or Treat coming up. So that's where we meet at the green, and people will come down and do their trick-or-treating on the green where it's nice and safe. So we're in the process of getting that set up, and then in September, we have on Thanksgiving, we have the Turkey Trot, which is also another big turnout down at the green, where they do a 5K run that happens every year. So we have some things lined up, but the special events are going well. Thank you.
I'm a beat slow, so can we just go back to the traffic report? And I just want to make an observation. If we look at the 23 to 24 year-to-date comparison, the written warnings have more than doubled.
Yes.
Every month. And as we talked before, I believe, based on the input you've provided, as well as the infamous anecdotal experience, when that person gets pulled over and is given a written warning, that has an absolute effect on his or her driving habits, at least in the near term. I mean, I'm sure you get some frequent flyers that blow through the written warning consideration, but it is, something that we need to convey as we look at resource needs to the Board of Selectmen, that said, here is the safety impact of that additional officer or those two additional officers. We have more than doubled the warnings that we give unsafe drivers, speeders, who are on the same roads that the bikers are on, that the walkers are on, and this is not the exciting, we stopped a bank robbery, but it is the hard daily aspect of making this a safer community. And I think these are terrific outcomes. And the fact that the officers are not just stopping them, but they have the discussion, I'm sure, with a driver before they give them the written warning, including, I could have given you a ticket that was 172, whatever it might be. And I think that approach, not only slows them down, but also says, maybe I was having a bad day, maybe I was distracted, but, I'm gonna think about what I'm doing in terms of driving. So I think these are great numbers.
Mr. Chairman, a good portion of that is caused by the effect of the regional traffic squad.
Okay. I'll take it anywhere we go.
Okay, still counts.
Yeah, the other interesting number, Ed, is DWI, year-to-date 23-24, down from 20 to 9, which I would like to think indicates that anybody who's considering a drink from 23 is giving it really thought in 24 and not doing it. because they know the cops are out there stopping everybody.
A lot of impact to that is also legalization of marijuana and people that are on, that have scripts for narcotics. So that's a big
Whatever
impact.
the reason is, it's good.
Okay. Okay,
We skipped over recruitment, we talked about that during
all right.
our budget. Regional shared services, did you want to discuss?
Yeah, I'll just, I think, at either our last meeting or the meeting before, the question came up in terms of, you know, where do we stand in terms of exploring some aspect of regionalization. Chief, you shared that there was, you know, a kind of a growing receptivity to it at the selectmen level, and as I said, somebody had asked about, one of the commissioners had asked about, you know, our previous efforts. So I just shared some of the outline material that we had put together a number of years ago when we were trying to be a little more aggressive and explore this. And my hope is that there is some growing interest in at least discussing this concept with other communities. You know, I know, Chief, you're certainly receptive to it. It's uncertain where some of the other communities are, but, you know, I would, again, if given the opportunity, urge the selectmen to take whatever steps and put together whatever process is helpful to explore the sharing of resources. Certainly, the financials have not changed on this in terms of the advantages to each of the community. They've only improved. It is an absolute winner from a budget expense reduction point of view. It is, in my opinion, would certainly have the potential to have a zero impact on the quality of services offered. Matter of fact, it would probably increase some of the services, because there'd be a continuing ongoing investment in technology and training, in what kind of state-of-the-art dispatching equipment, as an example, is available out there. And so hope springs eternal that you know, this would be considered and somehow get to a more active discussion at the Board of Selectmen meeting. So anyway, this is the background I wanted to share everyone had. So that's why it's in the packet. Okay, correspondence.
I have a few emails that came through, we included them. This is my correspondence. Do you have any correspondence?
No.
Okay, all right. One was a recognition officer man-wear, and of course the public safety team. That was a gentleman who happened to be a police commissioner in the town of Guilford. And Mike was in a bicycle accident. He fell off his bike off of County Road, and he commended the response of police, fire, and ambulance, and he sent a letter talking about his experience and how his Apple Watch alerted police 911. Second one is Summerhill and Harkness Drive. This is actually more for traffic and for patrols, and that's a Mrs. Trish White, who is requesting that we do radar and surveillance over the stop signs of the bus stops off of Summerhill. Generally, they rotate around all the school bus stops, so we find high impact zones, so we do that quite often. Generally, that's where you see a lot of the increase in these tickets that are written. So we'll make sure that the patrols have that and that they address that. Third one I have is from Judy Merriam from Madison, Connecticut, and she was she had a flat tire, she turned into a curb as a motorcycle came up in the back of her, and she ended up in the pines, and her vehicle needed a tire change. That's where she met Officer Trey and Officer O'Neill. So she said they're extremely kind, and that she thanks them for helping her, standing by as the AAA responded. She also talks about how proud she is to live in a community with such caring police.
Good.
Another one is from Mary Fiamberti, I think I pronounced that right. And she was just generally thanking us, she did through the town website, for all that we do, the police department. Lastly, I have a letter from South Central, again, thanking Captain Harkins for his participation in selection, and that was he's actually panelist for another department. What department was that?
Ansonia.
Ansonia. And we always participate when we can to assist other departments, so of course, in turn, they do that with us. That's all I have for correspondence.
Can I just ask, Captain Harkin, so what was your impression of the process? Is it any surprises at all in terms of how the exam was handled in terms of
Our exam?
your participation?
Oh, Ansonia.
Yeah.
Well, I sat on the oral work for the
Right.
lieutenants. I thought it was very good. I think they had very good candidates. And I think at the conclusion of it, we were able to, talk a little bit, convene, and we all came to the same conclusion that the people that we separately graded the highest were their best candidates. So it all worked out for the best. I thought it was a very good process.
Well, I think it's great you were able to participate. I think you can't go through a process like that without coming back with a few good ideas, some other things that you might want to use in the evaluation process. I'm delighted that we have, individuals who have the respect to participate in that. They, there's
My pleasure.
yeah, well, that's great, good.
Okay. Okay, traffic issues, I think maybe we put that with a little bit of new business if we may.
Okay.
Right, I'm gonna send them to you individually because I believe it's about 70 pages. That, what you have there is the traffic study conducted by the state DOT. It basically is the Madison road safety audit. And that was conducted from Route 1 at Sampson Rock, the intersection, to the Hammonasset connector. They did look at some additional locations. I pointed out, I was with them for the time they were in town. We had an officer doing traffic, and I was pointing out various projects that were occurring in the town of Madison, additional apartments, impacts that would affect egress access to Route 1 and feeder roads. That was, we started the dialogue in January of '24. They were on site early, late spring, early summer, and we received that approximately on the 16th of September. That is the report. So I'm going to have a discussion with the Board of Selectmen over the results of that. But the state is not really doing general requests anymore for traffic studies. I asked for one for, I call it the roads that lead us up to the schools, new schools being built, the loop from downtown up Cops Road to Green Hill into Muggertown, and then south again, and then also out to Route 1, continuing on Green Hill. They said they were not gonna do them anymore, and that they suggested we go with CROG, the South Central region, and that's where most of the municipalities belong to, and that they have a committee that could handle that. So that's the direction we're going. As far as that study, the purpose of looking at that was that we're considering that one, that'd be a opportunity for part of the trail to go up their bicycle path and sidewalks. So that discussion's ongoing. That report contributes what we would like to do on Route 1 report. I think the intention of that is that they'd like to see sidewalks, and they'd like to see the Greenway Trail carried to downtown Madison. Now, in conjunction with that, they had some input from Mr. William Campbell. You might remember Mr. Campbell, who was, has impaired sight, and he wanted a lot of the crosswalks and areas of crossing with devices such as an actual light to become audible. They're aware of that. They brought that to my attention. So my understanding was that they were going to handle that in short order. I understand now that he still is a little dissatisfied with the response, not by the police department, but that he would like to see a quicker response to their part. In fact, he came to the police department about 2 weeks ago, right? We brought goodies and thanked us. And he also, when he had the discussion with our first selectman, when he said that the police have been very cooperative, we also help him assist him when he calls on his phone. So I just want you to be aware of that. I'll send those to you as you could look at them at your leisure. And we'll perhaps circle back next meeting and talk about
That's a good idea. I mean,
Okay.
you know, I just saw it online, but I think it'd be helpful if we can get it to the commissioner so we can kind of digest it before the meeting and then, you know, get your a little more in-depth review of the recommendations and also if there's anything that, from a traffic, that you have some questions about that aren't addressed in here, you know.
It's a long process. We're still waiting for the crosswalks at West Wharf, also to the eastern part of town, where that's obviously going to become very busy. Between the park, the building of condos, the ones in the back, I understand, are almost completed. So they'll be filling up with folks soon, and people want to be able to walk in, walk to the businesses, or go into the park. So I have the equipment ready. I was waiting for them to say we're good to go.
Okay.
That's all I have in regards to this.
Commissioner comments? Tom?
No, sir.
Ian?
None.
Michael?
Actually, yeah, I wanted to just mention, back about the community calendar, I was one of the organizers for the Madison Pride Fest. We had between 70 to 80 vendors. The day, I mean, the weather could not have been more beautiful, everything, we had a great turnout, everything went really well. I had many of the vendors and attendees who did not know I was on the commission, but just talked about how great it was to see the police presence. Everybody was so respectful, they just felt very safe, very comfortable, and they were just really grateful to have that there was a table and that our department was a part of it. Nobody felt singled out, nobody felt that they were ostracized. It was very well received, and like I said, many attendees as well as the vendors had complimented me on it without even knowing I had any part of the police department.
Great.
So it was great to see that, and I thank you everybody for being there.
Good. Well, thank you. It sounds like a good,
Mr. Chairman,
good move. Yes.
we have a brief executive session.
Yes.
Okay. And
Do you want to ask
also-
Amy if she has any
Yes.
comments?
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Just one additional thing, it's around the corner, budget time,
Yes.
so we have to discuss how we want to handle that, and I know we're gonna have increases in a lot of stuff that we purchase for the department.
Yeah. You know, it's, and this is more of a planning process, but I think we've had a sense of more insight, including how we can best support the resource needs of the police department as we go through a ramp-up process for the November and December meetings. I know even in December, numbers start to be put together, so, you know, we'll certainly want to work with you and get your thoughts going into the November meeting in terms of what are the resource needs, short-term, long-term, but looking at something that is, you know, really we can, you know, kind of formally endorse and then talk about the best way to move forward. So I think Chief, it's a good reminder that hey, the summer's over, let's start the budget process.
I've already submitted the CIP, 5-year plan, which is standard. Most of that equipment is communication or technology we use in the department, because we know there's gonna be increases and changes to technology, which we're gonna have to replace hardware, things to that effect. So that went in for approximately $150,000.
Is there any impact with all the conversation about artificial intelligence, how that will work within our department, our communications, or will it interact with anything at all in the department?
I think you're gonna see, eventually, within the CAD systems, more an AI approach to, as, when those lights go on. I mean, we're videotaping now as soon as the lights go on, actually 24/7, we're videotaping, those cars are operating on video. It clears, it recycles, the events are recorded and stored. But I think you're gonna see more, is even fire trucks, ambulance, anything where there may be a liability, you're gonna see it, it's gonna change to that. I think some of the requirements with changes in medical laws are also gonna affect how we operate with, I think that, we know that we put the ad out for the MSW, which is, I think that's gonna be a great tool for the town of Madison. Will show the police department we're dealing with people in crisis. And most certainly the follow-up, which is huge. A lot of us don't, we just don't have the capacity for the follow-up with the police. It's easy to throw it to the police department, but we don't have the tools to do this. So hopefully we're getting there, but I think you see a lot of those changes. You know, there are a lot of requirements coming out federally, to the state level down, on how we're dealing with things, so.
Okay. I don't have any comments. Is there a motion for us to adjourn to executive session to deal with the chief's performance review and management assessments?
So moved as stated by the chairman.
Okay, we will adjourn to executive session. I don't-
1817.
6:18.
So,